Languishing is like a word that you probably hear from a Jane Austen novel, isn't it? Isn't it? How would you define it?
It's a pretty big word for a pretty big emotion, I suppose. It's in a kind of recent article in the New York Times, organizational psychologist, is a guy called Adam Grant. He calls it kind of a sense of stagnation and emptiness. And it was kind of a phrase that was coined by a guy called Corey Keyes, a sociologist. To me, I call it the apathy trap. And that's something I experienced quite a lot. I had quite an interesting journey with my own mental health. And the apathy trap is usually a warning shot to me. And that's the kind of the feeling of not wanting to do anything. Even the simple things like going to a shop or going for a walk, they start to become just things you don't see the point in. And that's a difficult way to feel. I find that really difficult. And when I feel that way, I always have to check why. And I go back 3 or 4 days in, was I sleeping well? Was I eating well? Was I exercising? Has something happened? Has there been something that came up in me, something triggered me? And it is a difficult one to deal with. But what we've done with the pandemic is these are normal human responses, and we have to understand that. We can't kind of pathologicalize these. These are exactly what we should expect from what has been such an intense, difficult and fearful period. These are, in fact, I think these are good emotions to experience and be curious around. But languishing is that kind of neglected middle child, I think Adam Grant called it, of mental health.
And what effect can that have then, feeling that way? What effect can that have on our overall mental health?
I mean, things like apathy and languishing, you start to lose motivation. And if you let that kind of spiral and it becomes kind of something that gets out of control and you don't hold it to account in some way, it can become a lot bigger and a bigger issue. And it's happened to me, to be honest with you. That's why it's such an interesting word. I have found myself, from years, I suppose, of experiencing depression. What happens is when you get this feeling, you think it's happening again. You feel that something's happening again and you magnetize it in your head, and then you start to lose a little bit of control. So for me, the ways to deal with things like this, are kind of evidence-based mindfulness programs like mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness cognitive-based therapy. These are brilliant ways to bring this out of you, to understand and gain insight into why you're feeling this way, because this is normal. And we have to understand that. I feel it a little bit right now, if I'm being honest. I've had just 2 or 3 weeks of adapting back into whatever you're calling kind of middle ground.
And that's where this vitamin P that you talk about comes in. For you, it's running. How do other people cope with this and get over this feeling?
I mean, everyone's different. It's subjective. And I think from my perspective, vitamin P, as my therapist used to call it, playfulness, and the importance of playfulness and a bit of, we call it here in Ireland, a bit of boldness, a bit of mischievousness, once it's legal. And just, it's been such an intense period for all of us, and everything has been very serious. And some of us actually feel guilty if we have a bit of fun. We need to. It's actually important for us. It's important for our hearts, souls and minds to actually have a bit of crack, a bit of fun, and have what I call vitamin P. That could be anything for you. Some people like jumping into cold water. Some people like going for runs. Some people like interacting and having a mad night out with their mates.
Or playing the guitar, any which one you want that you've got on the walls. And it's all good advice, especially at the moment, isn't it? Languishing, it's been named the emotion of 2021. Thanks, Niall, for telling us about it this morning on Morning Live. It's nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely.